Why should your company advertise on EDFL Web TV? EDFL Web TV reaches an audience drawing from the biggest sporting body in Melbourne's expanding northwestern suburban corridor, with over 9,000 participants and tens of thousands of families and fans distributed on a network reaching thousands of tech-savvy social media subscribers. EDFL Web TV can present your company's product or service in a top-of-the-show billboard, similar to a network TV sports broadcast, either with vision or still graphics. Sponsored segments are available and can be integrated into the regular week-to-week show. EDFL Web TV is also compatible with conventional TV ads, either professionally made or made by the EDFL. Customise your advertising package to reach the EDFL Web TV and social media audience today.
Hi, I'm Varley and welcome back to the home of EDFL Web TV, the Pascoe Vale Hotel. This season we'll be coming to you weekly right here on the EDFL YouTube channel, so make sure to subscribe to keep up to date with all our videos. It's been another big week in the EDFL, so let's jump straight into the issues. Hi, I'm here at Umpire Training at Windy Hill. Some of the AFL umpires have been lovely enough to join the EDFL umpires, and I'm joined by Matthew Nicholls. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Why have you come to the training today?
We've come down here for community umpiring round, so all the AFL umpires are getting out to community umpiring groups just to share a bit of our experiences and help work with some of the umpires on some coaching and some training drills.
Excellent. What do you do to mentally prepare for a game?
Well, look, for me it's about focusing on what my job is, so I tend to focus more on the aspects of umpiring that I can control. So what are the important free kicks, think through the conditions of the game, where it might be, who's playing, and then just make sure I'm nice and relaxed before we go out there.
What piece of advice have you received that you still stand by today?
Look, there's probably a few bits. You've got to make sure you're nice and fit, obviously. Be calm and composed on the ground. Protect the ball player is something that Rowan Saws has instilled in us over the years. And really just enjoy what you're doing. I think it's a job that you need to enjoy, otherwise it can be a bit challenging. So enjoy the opportunities you get, particularly at AFL level, to go out there and run around on some great grounds with some great players.
You're renowned as an excellent bouncer. What did you do to perfect that skill?
I practiced and practiced and practiced. So I've lost count of the number of hours I've spent practicing, and it's one of those skills that you need to have a technique that can stand up under pressure, and obviously an AFL game is pressure, so just work on that technique over and over again. If I need to use video footage, then that's what I do to refine the technique, but just trying to make sure that it's as bulletproof as possible, and so far it's going pretty good.
Definitely. Did you change your approach to umpiring when you started working with more well-known players and bigger crowds and more media coverage?
A little bit, and probably not as early as I should have. I probably put a little bit too much pressure on myself when I first started in the AFL, until I realised how heavily scrutinised it is, and it can become a little bit all-consuming. So for me, a little bit of advice from my mum about putting everything into perspective helped me just step back from it a little bit and relax and not put too much pressure on myself. And from that point in time, I suppose I've started to improve and realised a couple of important milestones along the way.
What do you consider the highlight of your umpiring career?
Oh, well, 2 grand finals I've been fortunate enough to do the last 2 years, so they're obvious highlights. Anzac Day game a couple of years ago was great. Umpiring in Wellington in New Zealand was terrific. Even umpiring a game at the Oval in London was terrific a couple of years ago. So coupled with my first game, obviously that's a highlight. I think they'd be the key ones.
Yeah. When it comes to finals and grand finals, do you change your training routine at all?
Not really. I think the important thing to remember is that you've got that game for a reason, so you don't want to go changing your routine. If you stick to the same routine and the same approach to the game that got you there in the first place, chances are that that's going to deliver a good performance on the weekend. So, you know, while there's probably a little bit more pressure and it's certainly more important, I don't go and do anything different. At the end of the day, it's still a game of football.
Yeah.
So I just try and adopt the same approach, go out there and enjoy it and walk away with a good result.
All about consistency.
Absolutely it is, and that's what we're striving for, and the reality is we're going to make mistakes. We try and limit the number of them, of course, but if we can be as consistent as possible, then that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
My pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
This weekend is the Women in Football round for the EDFL Umpires, with a game being played at Hillside versus Glenroy. And one of the umpires on the weekend will be Nadine Rabah. How do you feel about umpiring this weekend?
Yeah, every week I'm extremely excited to go out on the field and umpire. This week's going to be really special, with all funds going to the Cancer Council of Australia. So we encourage everyone to dig deep and support all the girls and boys that will be involved in the day.
It's really a great promotion for our female umpires to see so many out for the weekend umpiring, just not at Hillside, but at Pascoe Vale versus Green Vale and at Moonee Valley versus Hadfield. Let's get behind the clubs which have supported this round of football, and we look forward to seeing lots of people at these games.
And so too the discussion panel of this week's episode. Adem Saricaoglu joins me, and Adem, we don't have Dave Kennedy this week, but we certainly had a very interesting time in Essendon Ford Division 1, the broadcast game, Westmeadows versus Tullamarine, and for the second time this year in a Division 1 game we had wild swings in the margin, and I think we learned a lot about both teams.
We certainly did, and look, post-game as well, we certainly learned a lot about, the two perspectives from the coaches, obviously, and sort of the motivations going into the game and coming out of it, what they learned as well. Tulla had a lot of heart, and especially after that really disappointing sort of first quarter and a half, 2 quarters, to come out and come back the way they did for J-Mar, Justin Marcy was incredible.
Now, you can watch the full game at edfl.tv, but if you watched the first quarter and the first 10 minutes of the second, you'd see Westmeadows kicking out to a 37-point lead, Robbie Hudson off the chain in the forward line kicking 5 goals, and Westmeadows looking absolutely like a team that belonged in the discussion with Essendon, Duda Stars and Craigieburn. What happened after that was Tullamarine kicked 13 goals to 2. They controlled the centre square, they won the clearances around the ground, and their ball movement and ball use was better than Westmeadows. One thing that really stood out when Westmeadows built that lead was that Tullamarine turned the ball over, moving it into their attacking half, whether it was the kick inside 50 or a kick to the half forward line. Westmeadows were just plucking the ball out of the air and rebounding it back the other way. They couldn't capitalise when they had the run of the game. We thought 37 points was enough, but Tullamarine, to their credit, started hitting targets and turned the game around, and they were very impressive in doing so. Yeah,
it gradually got better throughout the day. The kicking, I suppose, there was a lot of high kicking in very windy conditions, which helps no one basically. And you can make your arguments that Westmeadows took their foot off the pedal, didn't really respond when the comeback was on from Tulla. But like I mentioned at the top, Teo, there's so much heart down there at the moment, down at Tullamarine, and we all underestimated that. We probably needed to see them live before we were able to make a fully, informed judgment on where they're at, because obviously a lot of us didn't think they'd be able to achieve much this year simply because of the fact they lost so many. But now that we've seen them live and know what they're playing for and the belief they have within themselves, no one can take them lightly anymore.
Well, post-game was explosive. It was as interesting a post-game as we've done up there, I think, with Mal Michael's comments about Aberfeldy players not turning up to training last year. This was really on the same level. So I've teased it long enough. Let's hear now from our Sportsmoves player of the game, Jack Burns, and also the Tullamarine coach, Anthony Leydin, and then the Westmeadows coach, Dave Connell.
Oh, the last 3 games have been unbelievable wins, mate. I mean, I've never wanted to win so bad in my life. And the boys just keep doing it. So proud of them.
Are your boys trying to prove a point at the moment?
Oh,
definitely.
Definitely.
Some of us perhaps didn't rate your boys pre-season.
You just read us off, basically, mate. We meant to, go down to C grade and come out and we show you guys. So that's all we can do. We love the pressure, and we stepped up for it again. Probably not the ideal start, but next week, we should be right on.
Have you used the chief as motivation?
Oh yeah. You
got a little dartboard.
We love the write-ups from you, so we take it on board and come out and prove he's wrong again.
There were signs throughout the second quarter, late the second quarter particularly, where we felt the wheel was turning, and we were quite vocal about that. We were sort of encouraging our chargers and letting them know that the momentum had shifted a little bit. We were coming from a long way back, but we thought if we kept hitting the scoreboard and just kept within reach, certainly half-time would give us a chance to reset and get organised and lay down a couple of fundamental rules and regulations and just adhere to some of the structures that we had intended to set in place in the first half. And we liked our chances. It was fairly upbeat at half-time, but obviously there's not a lot of margin for error when you're trailing as we were at half-time. Yeah, look, I mean, that'd probably be a bit of an edge in quality-wise from Tullamarine of years gone by, but that's not something we put too high a value on. For us, the players that have come in are guys that love to play footy, love to train hard and work hard defensively and are coachable and can follow rules, which you could argue may not necessarily have been the case in years gone by, hence the results and the fact they're still in Division 1. So, we certainly think we've got a good list, but having said that, you look at the results of our reserves of previous weeks and, we've got a lot of work to do in terms of adding to that depth. Because at the end of the day, probably later in the year, that's what will probably be the most telling thing. Arguably, there could be one or two perhaps that might slot into the team, but beyond that, we're probably pretty well stretched. So we had a couple out today, but I guess Westmeadows would probably say the same. They probably had about 6 or 8 out and another half a dozen in the reserve. So we know where we're at. We're not unrealistic of our expectations, and we're certainly pleased with where we're at the moment. But that's all due to the hard work of the playing group and their attitude and their commitment to representing Tullamarine Football Club.
From 37 up to 20 down at the finish, what went wrong today?
It's happened all year, to be honest. So we just had a bit of a heart-to-heart in the room. So I think every game this year we've led by minimum 3 or 4 goals, and every game so far in the second period we've had a 10-minute lapse where we've let the opposition back in. So it's an ongoing problem.
And that was the gist of the half-time spray that we saw out in the middle. Obviously, just an inconsistent effort. Just
inconsistencies. Yeah, we just spoke about it then. I think I think we've got a really mentally weak group. We've just talked about that then, and we've got some stuff to work on, and including myself, I think externally and internally this group's been overrated.
Wow, Dave, how do you become mentally tougher? Like what measures do you put in place to become mentally tougher, considering you think the group's mentally weak?
Change of personnel.
Yeah, right.
So I think as a group, we just discussed it. You've got me right at the end of the game where we're really disappointed. But as a group, look, I think if you line our side up on paper with names, and you line Tullamarine's side up on paper with names, and I know that's not the way football's played, we're pretty disappointed. But I think they're a much better side than us.
When the game was on the line late third quarter, early last quarter, we had Tank with us today. We're really appreciative of that, and he called out for the on-field leadership. Where are the leaders? Where are they going to stand up right now? Are you lacking that department?
Yep.
Do you feel at the moment? Is that obviously a major thing to be working on? I mean, more voice, I suppose.
Look, it is, and we just talked about it then as a group. And look, I thought at the 20-minute mark of the second quarter, we probably had them right where we wanted them, and that's probably the disappointing part. From the 20-minute mark of the second quarter, we've kicked, I think it was 1 or 2 goals to 11 from that point. So that's the disappointing part, and that's as a group where I discussed that we're not mentally strong enough, and we don't have enough people that can stand up and say, well, I'm going to do something about it.
Do you have the leaders that are capable of providing more leadership, or do you simply don't have that sort of in your stocks?
Look, it's something that I talked to Tank at a lot about, and the good thing and the bad thing about, and Tank won't mind me saying this, but the good thing and the bad thing about having a person like a Tank at your footy club that's been the captain here for 10 or 11 years is that because he's such a strong leader and such a strong personality, guys underneath him probably haven't needed to or haven't been developed underneath. So when you get to a point where he's not going to be there forever, then there's an issue there. It's not a fitness thing, absolutely. We got outworked today, simple as that. We got outworked from the 20-minute part of the second quarter for 2 quarters and 10 minutes, and that's a mental thing. That's not a fit. These guys, we've had a massive pre-season, and these guys can run our games. That's purely mental. Look, we're at the crossroads right now, so we're in a situation where we've got 2 weeks, and then we've got Dooders at Dooders, Craigieburn at Craigieburn. So look, it's in our own hands, but potentially we could be at 3-4, which is a long way back.
And there it is, explosive comments from Dave Connell. Mentally weak, the accusation to his team. And I tell you, training this week, not going to be fun for the Westie boys. And I think the fact that they've got the bye is almost another burden, because rather than go and play and try and get that one out of the system, Those words are going to be ringing in the ears for 2 weeks now, so that's a really brutal assessment of his team, but at least it's an honest one. To say that they were internally and externally overrated says that the club got it wrong, says that we got it wrong, but I don't know how wrong. I still think they can make the top 4, but what did you make of both the fallout from the Westie performance and the thoughts of the coach Dave Connell there?
I think he knew, he was fully aware of the fact that the post-game interviews end up on our show, Teo, and the whole league gets to see them, and the playing group will look at that those comments there, and he knew fully well what he was doing, and that's why he did it, because he knew that they'll get the airtime that they've just got now, and they'll start to rebuild on that, I suppose. And look, they're really lacking that leadership, Teo. We had the captain in the box, Andrew the Tank McLean. He was with us and did a great job for us, but you could tell he was desperate to get out there, and even in the call, he was early in that last quarter, he was pleading for some urgency and some leadership within some of the midfielders and some of the more senior players in the group, and it just didn't come, and that's going to be a major thing for Westmeadows to work on going forward. Now
let's talk about Craigieburn beating Oak Park. 15 goals plus the difference in the end. This was a meeting of 2 unbeaten sides, but Oak Park ran into a buzzsaw here.
Yeah, they certainly did. There was a few of us in the media department that were a bit worried about what Oak Park might face, and look, I was a bit more bullish about them. I thought they'd take it up to Craigieburn, but wasn't really the case in the end. And what's particularly worrying for the rest of the competition, Teo, is we know the impact of the Cloaks. We know Jason's having a great year, and he kicked another 5 goals, I think, on the weekend, but you bring Nick Fletcher into the side, who's missed a couple of games himself, and he kicked 7. He's played 4 games and kicked 15 for the year. That's a really worrying sign for the rest of the competition, that you don't not only have the Cloaks to worry about, but when Nick Fletcher's in form, they're going to be formidable down there to beat in your backline the Craigieburn forwards.
Now, as we transition to Strathmore Community Bank Premier Division, we've got to go with a shout out first to Monique, Conti and Sarah Dagon. Monique grew up playing in the boys teams at Essendon Duda Stars. She's now with Melbourne University Youth Girls, and Sarah Dagon, a Pascoe Vale Youth Girls player. They were both involved in Vic Metro's win in the AFL National Youth Girls Championships. You're seeing the pictures appear on your screen right now, some of the scenes and celebration with the trophy as well. Congratulations to Monique and to Sarah, great stuff, and great ambassadors for the Western Youth Girls League, of course, where all the EDFL clubs play. So we move on to Strathmore Community Bank Premier Division now, and rather than go through game by game, you can see the scores there. We need to have a discussion, Adem, and the topic is, has Premier lost its competitive balance? We were talking so much last season about the close relegation battle, the close top 4 race, and of course some epic finals, and a close grand final really does sum up that it was a good contest and a well contested league right to the end. We had results like Pascoe Vale and Northern Saints beating Aberfeldy. We had unexpected upset results through the course of the year that kept everyone guessing. Have we lost it, do you think?
There's a clear divide at the moment, Teo, but we've seen in other leagues, across the regions around the EDFL, and the problem there is you pretty much know it's only a 1 or 2 horse race in those particular leagues. But here, you look at our current top 4 in Premier: Pascoe Vale, Aberfeldy, Greenvale, Strathmore. All 4 could easily win the flag. You can make your arguments there. It's anything could happen if that is the top 4. You look at the bottom half as well, and any of West Coburg, Northern Saints or Airport West could get relegated. So that's where the interest remains for me. But there is definitely a divide at the moment when those bottom teams play the top teams, and even when you throw in the middle markers, Maribyrnong Park and Keilor and even Avondale Heights are sort of in no man's land right now. It does make for very predictable football, and unfortunately the results on the weekend showed that there is that massive divide between the top and the bottom. I'm a bit concerned about it, Teo, but I think the saving grace is the fact that at the end of the day, we're playing for a premiership and we're playing to avoid relegation, and those questions are largely unanswered right now. 4 teams are genuine contenders, 3 teams could easily go down.
Is the problem, though, that the gap between those genuine contenders and the relegation teams has opened up too much? I suppose it's nice that Pascoe Vale made the jump. They beat Strathmore for the first time in 33 years a couple of weeks ago. Who can begrudge them of ending a losing streak like that? But of course they were in different divisions for a lot of that time as well. But is the worry that we're going to, I think, have knee-jerk reactions? I mean, you jump on the EDFL Facebook page, a lot of people were critical of the fact that there weren't many close games over the weekend. Is that a concern going forward? I personally don't think it is. I'm holding out hope that we will see an upset like a Northern Saints beating an Aberfeldy or Pascoe Vale beating Aberfeldy last year, an upset of that magnitude in the pipeline. But I don't know, maybe some of the top teams learnt their lesson from that last year, and there's just that bit more ruthlessness. The fact that Aberfeldy kicks, so many goals in the last quarter to dismiss Marby, and Kyle Reimers gets off the chain and kicks 8 out of his 12 in the final term. It shows that teams, rather than putting the cue in the rack, are powering to the line and are absolutely making the most of percentage as well, rather than maybe calling off the dogs and settling for a win that doesn't jump out off the page and say, wow, how are Marby, a very good team who are probably spending a bit of money to, put together this side. Maybe not as much as some of the others, but certainly there'd be some quality and well sought after players in there. They're being beaten by 100 points in consecutive weeks.
At the end of the day, the way I see it, Teo, there's two different aspects to this. There's obviously the budget financial side of it, which I am very concerned about because it can sort of put clubs under a lot of pressure, and obviously we know there's a lot of volunteers involved there, and that's not good if your clubs are really struggling to pay their dues. But as far as the competitive balance goes, I'm not so worried, because it's not like we have a situation where there is a Deer Park type situation where no one's going to come close. You've got a 4-horse race at least right now in Premier, and Northern Saints for mine aren't guaranteed to go down just yet.
Well,
so
we'll wait and see how it goes. Check out the preview video for our tips for this coming weekend. I think there will be some closer games. Let's finish with Strathmore Community Bank Division 2, and this is the flip a coin league right now, because we just can't see the swerves coming. Who would have thought that Coburg Districts would come out and belt Moonee Valley by almost 100 points? This is Moonee Valley, who are unbeaten. Coburg Districts, who'd put in a couple of stinkers and were held to just 2 goals by Roxburgh Park. They come out and absolutely blitz Moonee Valley, and then Jacana beating Keilor Park by almost 100 points. Great for Jacana. And it's got us questioning, how far can the Jags go this year? They're 4-1. They're looking like a finalist. But Adem, a lot of interesting talking points coming out of Division 2 this week.
There certainly is, Teo, and good and bad. I mean, we can talk about Keilor Park, but we could leave that for the preview because they got a pretty big game this weekend. As far as the Coburg Districts win goes, look, they made a statement. I put the acid on them last week's show, and was questioning why they've been so inconsistent when there was a lot of expectation, and they came out and proved the point with that massive win. And look, some of their stars were coming in. Fenner kicked 5. I think Sean Pye played his first game for the year and kicked 4 goals as well. So they're starting to get their best 22 together, and when they do, look out, because they won't be an easy team to beat. And as far as Jakarta's concerned, look, Kimolitis kicked 7 goals, but when you've got Wolf Graham, who's played plenty of Premier Division football, as has Chris Johnson, obviously an AFL triple premiership player. When they're all on fire for Jacana in Division 2, they're going to be pretty tough to beat themselves.
It's great for the Jags because, as we've said, they're a team that came within a game of finals last year. Now they've really got ahead of the win-loss count and a great chance to go on and consolidate this season. I wanted to ask as well about Keilor Park. Well, very briefly. They've got the two noobs coming up in the next couple of weeks. They've got East Sunbury away in 2 weeks. They've got Burnside Heights at home this week. I think if it was the other way around, we'd be talking up East Sunbury. But does the confidence that they'll get out of Burnside Heights at home leave them in a position that they can launch and start a run now? I mean, I'm not writing off Burnside Heights, but are we in a position where Keilor Park cannot make finals? Or are you open to the idea that they can make a run in the second half of the year?
I think they're gone, Teo. So, sorry to anyone listening out there at Keilor Park, but 0-5, it's a long way to come back, especially when 4th place Roxy is already 3 wins ahead of you. I can't see it happening right now. Again, there's just not enough quality in this 22 that has the ability to win games against a lot of teams that are a lot more competitive than they have been in recent years. I mean, it's just not going to be Keilor Park's year. And even if they do get the 3 figures up against Burnside Heights this weekend, I can't see it adding anything in terms of confidence. I mean, it'll be good to sing the song and have a win there and enjoy yourselves, kick a couple of goals there, but I don't think it's going to help too much against East Sunbury. I'm not going to tip that game 2 weeks in advance, obviously, but they'll get the win against Burnside Heights, I believe, but I don't think they can make finals, Teo. There's just not enough there right now.
Well, we'll make our picks as part of the preview video. Click through to the EDFL YouTube channel. Big week on EDFL Web TV, visiting Umpires Training, of course. And don't forget to check out the preview video ahead of this weekend's action. We're here at the Pascoe Vale Hotel, proud sponsor of EDFL Web TV. He's Adem Saricaoglu. I'm Teo Pellizzeri. Click through and watch the rest of this week's material on the EDFL YouTube channel.
That's it for this edition of EDFL Web TV. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you can get all our updates as soon as they go online. I'm Claire Varley, and we'll see you back here at the Pascoe Vale Hotel soon.
no time to rest.